In today's video, we'll look at section 8-4, direct, joint, and inverse variation. So the first one we're going to look at is direct variation. That is when the y varies directly as x if there is some non-zero constant k such that y equals kx. K is called the constant of variation. So notice it's just a line and it will always go through the origin. Okay. Now with this, there's a nice little thing we can use. If there's two separate direct variation equations and they both have the same constant of variation, meaning we're talking about the same problem, then we can rewrite it, each of them, as y1 over k1 equals k and y2 over x2 equals k. We can set up a proportion. y1 over x1 is equal to y2 over x2. So let's use that. Let's use the proportion so we can just simplify it a little bit easier. So let's use that proportion. So if y varies directly as x and y equals 12 when x equals negative 3, find y when x equals 16. So if this is y sub 1 and this is x sub 1, this would be y sub 2 and this would be x sub 2. So we can just set it up that way. So we have 12 over negative 3 is equal to y sub 2 over 16. And then all we have to do to get rid of that times that 16, that divide by 16, is just multiply by 16 on both sides. And we end up with, well, 12 divided by negative 3 is just negative 4. So 16 times negative 4 would just give us negative 64. And that is equal to y. So it's really nice when we can use proportions. Makes things a lot easier. Okay? So now we'll talk about joint variation. That is when y varies jointly as x and z if there is some non-zero constant k such that y equals k times xz. And the same thing, we can rewrite these if we have two different situations with the constant of variation. We can rewrite both of them and set up another proportion. So we could rewrite them as y sub 1 over x sub 1 z sub 1 equals y sub 2 over x sub 2 z sub 2. So once again, we're going to use that proportion to help us solve. So we have, suppose y varies jointly as x and z. Find y when x equals 8 and z equals 3 if y equals 16 and z equals 2 and x equals 5. So again, let's just say this is y sub 1. We have x sub 1, z sub 1. That makes this y sub 2, z sub 2, and x sub 2. So we're just going to set everything up just the way it is. So we have y sub 1 over x sub 1, z sub 1, so 8 times 3 is equal to y sub 2, 16, over z sub 2, 2 times x sub 2, 5. And now we just do a little simplification. So 8 times 3 is 24. 2 times 5 is 10. So I'm just going to rewrite this now. So I have y over 24 is equal to 16 over 10. Oh, 10, not 16 again. So same thing, we can reduce now. So I'm going to divide by 2 on both of these. So I have 8/5. So now I'm just going to multiply by 24 on both sides. So when I multiply by 24 on both sides, I end up with y is equal to 38.4. And there we go. So remember, you won't always get a whole number. You might get a decimal. That's okay. So then last one, this is indirect variation. Or excuse me, another direct variation. So it's inverse though. So y varies inversely as x if there is some non-zero constant such that xy equals k, or y is equal to k divided by x. So before it was, when it was just simply direct variation, it was y equals k times x. This is inverse, meaning it's y equals k divided by x. So same thing, we can set it up. If x1 equals y1, or times y1 equals k, and x2 times y2 is equal to k, we can reset it and say x1, y1 equals x sub 2, y sub 2. And then set up the proportion. X sub 1 over y sub 2 is equal to x sub 2 over y sub 1. Okay? So we want to use that. All right? So let's use that proportion once again to solve. So if r varies inversely as t and r equals 18 when t equals -3, find r when t is equal to -11. So let's just rewrite this proportion. So we have r sub 1 over t sub 2, okay, is equal to r sub 2 over t sub 1. So they switch sides. Okay, it's a little backwards. So now if I fill it in, so if this is t sub 1, this is r sub 1. If this is t sub 2, this is, oh, I got that wrong. Put it in the wrong spot. I was looking at the wrong t. Okay, so if this is r sub 1, this is t sub 1, which would make this r sub 2 t sub 2. Okay, so I'm just going to rewrite it now. So I have 18 over -11 is equal to r over -3. So there you go. Just multiply by -3 on both sides. Solve for r. So double negatives cancel out. And so we end up with r is equal to 4 and 10/11. Okay, we could have put a decimal, but it would have been really ugly since it's divided by 11, so fractions are always better. Okay, so, and that's all direct variation is.